Good
So,
morning.
good morning. I know we were just talking before we even started recording about not really knowing what we're going to talk about, but wanting to share with other people some of our really good conversations.
Yes. Well, and how things are changing and evolving in sessions, that human animal connection. And I can think back of when I first started and the things that came through in sessions and now what's starting to, and part of that is my own evolution, the expansion of my own um ability to read that energy language. It's becoming more fluent in any language. The more you use it, the more you practice it, the stronger it gets. But they they love us so much, and the push for even more human connection and human self-awareness from that place of unconditional love
Mm.
from our animal companions. It's been really interesting to see and feel how things have changed over, I would say, the last couple of years.
Do you feel like the humans, when you're sharing what's coming up for the animal, do you feel like the parents, the humans in the room, are receiving it?
Yes. And I think that varies too with kind of where the human is.
Mm.
Anybody that contacts me is already pretty open-minded, right? Even if they don't know what Reiki is or have never experienced animal communication, just being open to it
Mhm.
opens the door. And I think many people are surprised by the depth of what their animals share, how
Mm.
aware their animal companions really are of what's going on in the home and what's going on in the family. And I'm not talking like family secrets and things like that. Animals do protect our privacy, FYI. But they know what's going on. They know what we're feeling and what we're experiencing. And I think it's very easy for us to just assume they're living their happy little life at their floor level or whatever it is, but they're not. They know exactly what's going on. And they're stepping forward more lately as guides, not
Yeah.
just babies.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because it reminds me back to when you did um, a session for my partner and my pup, Bodie and Janet, right? And
Hmm.
um, as I listened to your recap of that with Janet, I was blown away by what Bodie was sharing and what you were getting that I could see in Janet's human design.
Yes.
And it's like to, and you don't know Janet's human design.
Nope.
And here it is coming through a pup,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing the same thing as I'm interpreting her human design, and she could echo it too because she knew it's kind of where she's what the journey is that she's on.
Right.
So it all really comes full circle, and that to me is fascinating. It's like I feel like what I am seeing is everything's pointing to the same place,
Hmm.
and they're on board.
Yes. Yes. Well, and it's one of the things that I wrote down too, one of the things that dogs especially bring to us is that unconditional love.
Mm,
And we, I think as humans, it unconditional love equals acceptance
yeah.
for who you are, right? You can just be who you are. You don't have to perform for your dog. You don't have to be anything, and they just love you no matter what. And
Mm.
that's such a glorious feeling. And a lot of people have only had that feeling from their dog or their animal companion. And so I think too, what you just said, our animal companions are even more trying to show us who we are, help us love ourselves, the whole kit and caboodle, like they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I can feel that deeply. I had something happen this week with my other dog, Keel, who you know, and I wanted to ask you about this. And it kind of leans into what you're saying. So I happen to know his animal design because I know when he was born and where he was born. And he has this particular energy that's all about rhythms. And people can
Mm.
have this energy too, right? It's a pattern. Like when we think about somebody who's like gets up at 6 o'clock and they have their coffee at 6:15, it's that kind of pattern, right? And
Yeah.
so we're currently at my mom's, and so the pattern changes because there's another dog here, there's another person here, we're walking in a different area. And
Hmm.
so he is very rhythmic. He's rhythmic about where he goes to the bathroom on his walk. So when we change, the pattern really changes for him. And he's quick. He's quick to adapt to that. But I was kind of laughing because there was this moment where I was wanting him to fill it, to do it differently, to do something he was doing differently. And in my head, I'm going, oh my gosh, he has the energy of patterns. It's innate for him. Like Bodhi doesn't. And he's happy-go-lucky. It doesn't matter where we are. He's going to just do his thing. And here's Keel with this particular energy. And I guess from your perspective, I would love to hear how that, how each animal kind of carries something different. And even if you have multiple animals in the same household, are they giving you different information to give to their humans? Or is it, are they giving you if you have two dogs in the same household, is the message coming through different or is it more relatable to their energy and how they see things?
That's a great question. It is. I'm always not surprised, but it's always really cool to see how each animal's personality comes through energetically. They're individuals just like we are. Um, and so how they perceive the world around them and then how they communicate that, just like with us, it's coming through their individual lens, their individual filter. So that it's coming through and picking up personality, tone. I've done family sessions with some dogs who are very one word answers, very stoic, very like the strong silent type. And then the companion, the female dog in the house, I'm thinking of a particular client right now, has everything to say and will share everything. So yes, it does come through, and it's again kind of like with us, it's the same information, but sometimes how somebody says it or the words they choose will hit a little different. We'll be able to receive it in a way we might not be able to receive it from somebody else or in when it's said a different way. So yes, that does happen a lot.
That's so interesting because I also happen to know my other dog, Bodhi's animal design. And so he has the energy of this shy, bold. And we so much see this in him. He has moments where he's very loud and very vocal. And I actually was writing an article this morning because he is the one that will wake me up. Like, it's time to get up. Keel would never wake us up unless there was like an emergency, but he's
Yeah.
much more reserved. Whereas when Bodhi's bold, he's bold.
Mm-hmm.
However, he can also be quite timid. And so as we're talking about this, I'm like seeing them in such a different light because that shines through in all areas. Like maybe if I didn't have this awareness, I would only see it in particular areas. But now as we're expanding this subject, I'm seeing it even in Keel's asking for something is very pattern oriented. And I call him Pavlov sometimes because when we come in from our nighttime walk, I am going to ask you for my nighttime treat. It's very much like that, where Bodhi's kind of erratic and there's no, you know, suddenly he'll want to play and suddenly he'll want to take a nap. And it's really different. So I'm guessing that makes great sense of how they're going to share with you
Mm-hmm.
a message, right? That we can then hear would be really different for each one of them.
Well, and just like with people, that there we as humans get what I call tightly wound. There are some people who are just a little tightly wound, right? A little uh, anxious, nervous, or always kind of prepared for things to happen. And then there's other people who are just like, meh, go with the flow,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm cool with whatever happens. Animals can have that same individual personalities. And I think when we tune in to that level like you have where you see them as their individual selves, it expands the connection and the relationship even more. And they start to show us even more when they realize that we're paying attention, that we're
Oh.
trying to listen, and we're
Hmm.
trying to understand. They're always giving us information. Energy is the universal language. So they're communicating with each other and us all the time. Just most of us have forgotten how to speak that language.
Yeah.
And so when we start to remember, it feels like this new information, this new connection. It's really not. We're just tuning in.
Right.
But
I love.
it makes them so happy. The tiniest bit of effort. Um, for us to meet them where they are, they do so much to assimilate into a human world. So when we try to step into their world, language, understanding, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to homes to do family sessions or even just a session with an animal. And as soon as I let them know, hey, your family, your human is who contacted me, is why I'm here, is to offer this and help you. They'll just look at me and they'll run to their human and give them like thank you, and then run back to me and lay down for their session.
Yeah.
So and they want their people to be present in their sessions. In the
That's
very
so
beginning, I would
interesting.
have clients who would, oh, I'll leave you in the room alone. I'll go in the other room. And the animal's like, no, I want you in here. I want you to be part of this and receive this too. And they will often lie, the animals will position themselves between me and their human so that the human is in the flow of energy.
Oh, I love that. I was on a call with a client and it was for her, and she was visiting her sister. And she had her sister's dog was really high intensity, very anxious, super anxious dog. At least that's what she told me. And so she put the dog outside to have the session because she felt like she couldn't concentrate. But the dog was just scratching at the door. She said, "I'm sorry, I have to let the dog in." So I said, okay, well, go sit someplace that you're really comfortable and let's see, what happens. So we start talking about what's going on for her. And she had just finished a huge, like, world trip doing all this stuff. And she's talking about how she's having a really hard time coming down off of all the travel. And I'm listening to her and I'm thinking, there's a lot of not anxious per se, but there's a lot of built up energy there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just start talking about the energy and looking at her human design and looking at what's coming up for her through that lens. And about 10 minutes into the session, she's like, "You're never going to believe it. The dog, for the first time, is laying down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not touching me because before that, it had to be right next to her." And I said, "Well, how do you feel?" And she said, "I'm feeling so much more grounded."
Yeah.
And I was like, so as we get grounded, as we figure out what's coming up for us and drop back into ourselves, that also helps them. I see.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're showing a symptom, what looks like a symptom for them is really them calling attention to something, an undercurrent that is going on for us.
Absolutely. They are mirrors.
Hmm.
And that's one of the ways they try to help us is to show us.
Yeah.
Um, when I have so many people ask me, what can I do? A lot of anxious dogs, a lot of anxiety, things like that. Um, and I tell people one of the best things we can do for our animal companions is to be aware of our own emotional state.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have a super anxious dog, and a lot of times I'm there for the animal and I'm not there to pry into the humans' lives. But as you talk, and I can feel the energy of the person too, there's almost always a correlation there. Not always. Sometimes the animals are having their own experiences that have caused anxiety or trauma, right? But I find that many, many times they are trying to mirror back. They're absorbing because they're trying to help us. Every animal is an emotional support animal. They're absorbing our emotional energy and often trying to show us where we're out of balance. But we often don't see it that way. We think their behavior is solely, you know, um, we don't realize the connection that they're trying to show us something.
I'm
So
not,
it's interesting when I have that conversation with people and kind of open the door to that conversation, you can see a light bulb go off. And then
yeah.
they start to share what's going on with their lives. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense now.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the statistic is. It might be around 70, 75% of animals are reflectors. So in the work I do in human design, there's
Mm-hmm.
5 types, right? One of the types, it's 1% of the human population are reflectors. And a reflector is a being that's completely open. And they are always taking in the energy and amplifying the energy around them.
Mm-hmm.
So both of my dogs happen to be reflectors, but some dogs can be projectors or generator types. So there is the possibility for them to be a different type, but most of them are going to be reflectors. So literally they are taking in the energy of the people in their house, the people at the dog park, you even when you come in and
Mm-hmm.
amplifying that energy. So that just right there alone is like kind of a validation of what you're saying. They are absolutely mirrors. A reflector is a mirror. A human
Mm-hmm.
reflector is a mirror, is like a calibrator of the
Yeah.
energy that's going on the planet. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people will think, "Oh, they're completely open, so maybe they're really quiet." Well, no, they're sometimes the loudest because they're just taking in and amplifying all the rest of us. But
Mm-hmm.
they are kind of our little signal of what's really going on the planet. So
Right.
animals are the same way,
Mm-hmm.
the exact same
Absolutely.
way.
Well, and I love what you said too, because again, our emotional state, um, there are things I do to prepare myself for sessions and ground and center and be in that calm emotional space, especially when I go to do in-person sessions. I mean, I do the same for remote sessions, but going into the home, I try not to knock on the door. You try to enter in a peaceful, calm, relaxing way. But again, I can't tell you how many people have told me, like, oh my gosh, when you get here, they're going to bark their heads off and then this. But when I walk in, none of that happens.
Mm.
And the people are just like, oh my gosh, but it's because I'm being very aware of my emotional state and what I'm bringing in.
Absolutely.
But it's the most beautiful, instant way to show that example to people of how our emotional state, how our energy immediately affects them. And these dogs don't even know me.
Right. My dad used to say it goes down the leash, and my
Hmm.
dad's very wise, and it does. That's a good metaphor for what happens. It's like
Hmm.
when and I can see that with my own pups. If I start dancing around and I'm excited or whatever, they get all amped. So that same
Yeah,
thing can happen in the other direction for sure.
absolutely. Well, and I love how in the sessions that we've done together, um, that what I feel and see and what comes through in a session with animals and with people is in the human design chart.
Mhm.
That it's the same information, kind of like what we were just saying, the same information, but coming through a different lens, through a different filter, in a different language, but it's all the same.
Yeah.
And so what valuable information, what a valuable tool to understand yourself without really. I think what I love about the human design and what you did for me and how I felt with my session was the validation. Is having I think I even told you it's almost like having somebody give me permission to be me.
Yeah. Permission slip.
And that's it's like a big sigh of relief. Um, to know that you could see all of those aspects of me that are just me, that don't need to be changed or fixed.
Yes. Yeah. I think that is, I had the big sigh of relief too. And I think, it's interesting because we've exchanged sessions and I can say almost the same thing in your session. It's like I can have these questions of something that I'm feeling, and here you are, after a session at a distance with no conversation, echoing back to me. And it's like, oh yeah, that really is what's up here for me, what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing. And I love the way that your work and my work come together in
Yes.
that because you want to talk, you have a double sigh of relief
Mm-hmm.
and the two
Mm-hmm.
different ways of hearing it. And I think for me, sometimes when I hear something one way, I'll get it. And then if I hear it in another way, it's like it lands even deeper inside of me.
Yes. Well, and I'm jotting down thoughts because as you're talking, I'm having the same thought. And I've told many clients this, and I kind of feel like your work does the same thing, is I didn't tell you anything about yourself you didn't already know.
Right.
But by setting an intention to connect together, and for me, it's like I'm coming in to shine a light on what you're looking for. I'm not finding it for you. I'm not bringing it to you. It was always there. You just couldn't see it for whatever reason.
Well, and
Um,
that's
I
so
think
true.
that's
And
kind
I
of what
think
you do too. You shine the light, you find it in the chart for what might be holding somebody back, or they can't quite find what they're looking for within themselves.
exactly. And I think the thing is when you're whatever you're ready for. It's
Yes.
kind of like saying wherever
Yes.
you're at. Like if
Uh-huh.
you moved into a house and you have your house, you're not looking for a brand new house because you just moved into a house. So
Right.
you may be looking for a tribe or friends in the neighborhood, or you may be looking for a new car. It's wherever you are, you're
Yeah.
shining a light on that. I'm shining a light on that. And then you have that, and then you move on to the next step of wherever you are. And
Hmm.
these are it's like an offering of support with where you are.
Yes. Well, and because life happens. This
Yes.
is what we came here to experience, the wide variety of life, right?
Yeah.
But how wonderful is it to go through life with a toolbox full of tools that you can reach in and pull out? You might need to, you don't need a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, right? You got
Yeah.
to grab the right tool. But how nice to know that you have tools to help you when something is happening, going through in life, whatever it is, that you can allow yourself to be yourself and how you respond to that, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Show up in your way.
Yes,
Both
yes,
of these, both of what we do allows the other, whether, however you're working with somebody, to show up in their way and not follow somebody else's path, not use somebody else's toolbox. You
right,
have to use your
right,
own tool because the reality is maybe that toolbox will work for you, maybe, but you're guaranteed that what's in your toolbox will definitely work for you.
right. Well, and I think so much just through my own personal journey, the more you know yourself, the more I
Mhm.
mean, when you can feel everything around you, which I can, feeling other people's feelings for the longest time was such a burden because I didn't know that's what was happening. And
Yes.
so, one of the most valuable tools that I've learned was to know myself. If the
Hmm.
more I know myself, then the easier it is to separate, is that mine or is that somebody else's? And
Absolutely.
that's been a game changer for being able to move through the world in a much easier way. And
Yeah.
so I think that's one of the most important gifts we can give ourselves. It doesn't mean life doesn't happen. It doesn't mean things aren't gonna, the roller coaster ride of life, but how we respond to it
Yeah,
we can control
exactly.
anyway. And the more you know yourself, the more you're allowed to be yourself in any given situation. And the more aware you can be of when you're feeling pressure or feeling things from other people of how they think you should react or respond. And it can be
Exactly.
it can be very confusing to be a human.
Yes, exactly. I was actually just having a conversation about this morning. I was saying, before I realized that I was feeling somebody else and not feeling myself, I would always be like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
What's going on? Even
Yeah.
physically, like, why do I feel this way physically? And, once you can understand what your design looks like, because that happens differently for different people.
Hmm.
The senses, I call them the spidey senses, are different. So when you know what your spidey senses are, and
Hmm.
you can be like a screen door in those areas where you're taking in and let it pass through your screen, as opposed to holding on to it, whoo, does life get lighter?
Yes. Yes. Well, and everybody, what I've learned in my work is we're all doing this. I mean, it's just the nature of being energetic beings and having energy fields. And, you know, we could go deep down that rabbit hole of quantum physics and quantum biology, right? But everybody's feeling more than their own stuff.
Yes.
It is. But so many people are not aware of it.
Yes.
And so just that little bit of awareness can lighten the load when you realize that all that you're carrying, all that you're feeling, one, isn't necessarily all yours, and two, you don't have to carry it.
Yeah.
But if you
Exactly.
don't know that, you know, life can feel heavy sometimes.
Absolutely.